Could the Miami Heat trade for second-year guard Tyler Kolek? It's an interesting thought, but with the New York Knicks signing both Malcolm Brogdon and Landry Shamet over the last week, that is a guard rotation that is very, very filled, especially when they have Deuce McBride and Jalen Brunson. The second-year guard from Marquette may be on the outs, and there is a report out there that that is the case. Brunson, Deuce, Jordan Clarkson was signed this offseason. Brogdon, Landry Shamet. There could be a logjam incoming for the second-year guard out of Marquette, Tyler Kolek. Moving Kolek could afford the 24-year-old opportunities that he would not get in New York. At least one opposing team has demonstrated interest in Kolek this offseason. And in the Heat's perspective, I am a little bit intrigued with Kolek. There's always going to be the connection with a Marquette player, and Kolek is a very solid distributor of the ball. It's a player that Miami may acquire, potentially if they pursued Kolek, very cheap. Very, very cheap. And if that's the case, then maybe it makes sense for the Heat to go after him. We're going to get into it on today's show. I am Nic Rohloff. This is the Heat Report by Chat Sports. And Kolek is a second-year guy who was drafted early in the second round and could be a very solid developmental player in this Heat system. It's a guy that I was pretty high on, I would say relatively high on, when it came to his status in the 2024 draft. And, well, let's get back into the draft, where he was taken 34th overall. Remember, he started his career actually at George Mason, playing in the A-10. How about that, baby? Then transferred to Marquette. He was a two-time first-team All-Big East player and the Big East Player of the Year in 2023. And, well, when you were going to the draft, I actually had him as my 26th overall player. Now, I do want it to be clear, the 2024 NBA draft was a relatively weak class, so the 26th player there is a second-round grade. But I did believe that he slid a little bit past his draft profile. And if you go back to the pre-draft process with Miami, there were reports that the Heat really liked Tyler Kolek. Now, I always thought it would be rich to take him with that 15th pick, and Miami obviously went with Kel'el Ware. But there was an attraction level from the Heat's perspective with Kolek. So they might be one of the teams demonstrating interest in Kolek if he is available via trade. Make sure you follow me over on Twitter, because if the Heat do make a move, I will have the news over on Twitter before making a video here on the channel. So go follow me today at Nic_Rohloff, 48 away from 2,400. Now, Kolek as a rookie did not get a lot of playing time, only appeared in 41 games, 7 minutes a night, and the stats obviously aren't pretty. He didn't get a lot of run, and he was not the most efficient in those limited 7 minutes per game that he got. But to me, when I think about Tyler Kolek's rookie season, it's not that he struggled, not that he was a disappointment. I just think he didn't get opportunities. And I think these numbers that you see on screen right now are very, indicative of that. Obviously on the left are his stats that we just showed on screen. But if you go to look at his per 100 possessions, which obviously is a sign of how a player can play, and it's PER, and you see how maybe he could impact a team if he was given the opportunity to be a rotational player. Well, yeah, the efficiency is still going to be the same, but he now averages 13 points per game and 11.7 assists. I'm not saying he would do that if he was playing 30 minutes a night, but it's the type of player he is and the type of stuff that he can bring to the table. And you go back to his film at Marquette. It's the reason why I liked him. It was his calling card. Kolek is always finding an open teammate. And that was actually part of the reason why Marquette was such a frustrating team to watch, because Kolek was always the best player on the floor, but very rarely was he attempting to put up 20 points a game. No, he was very content with giving you 13, 14, but dishing out 8 assists. Former first-round pick. And out of Marquette, Cam Jones from a year ago was the player that they ultimately had as their leading scorer. But Kolek is a guy that plays the right way, that runs the pick and roll really effectively, and could be a solid backup point guard in Miami. And are you interested in a Tyler Kolek trade? Let me know your thoughts. Type Y for yes or type N for no. Pin comment on this edition of the Heat Report. Well, I know people are going to say, why should we be interested when we have so many guards? Hero, Powell, Davion Mitchell. We just drafted Yakachonis. We have Drew Smith. Jovic can handle the rock a little bit. I do understand that sentiment. And I know the Heat don't need another guard. But the reason why I'm talking about this on today's show is because when a player that has the talent of Tyler Kolek becomes available, and I don't think it would be very expensive, it's hard for me to pass on adding just good basketball players to my roster. And to me, Tyler Kolek is likely available for nothing. Yeah, Malcolm Brogdon and Landry Shamet don't have guaranteed deals in New York. Kolek does, so those two veterans could be waived and released, and Kolek could ultimately end up being the fourth guard in rotation behind Clarkson, Brunson, and Deuce McBride. But if they like what they see from Brogdon, maybe they do trade Kolek and stick with him and give him a fully guaranteed deal. So if Kolek's available, it's not going to cost you much. And my trade idea is just a very simple one-for-one swap, no draft picks included. The Heat give up Keshad Johnson, and the Heat get Tyler Kolek. More coming on my thoughts on this, but this is why you subscribe to the channel, because we have daily content around the Miami Heat. Hit that sub button today if you want to stay locked in for this upcoming year of Heat basketball. Some people might get upset with me saying this, but I am fine moving off of Keshad Johnson. I am. I know a lot of people feel like he could be a rotational guy for Miami. I'm not sure where the love affair began. I know he was a solid player for the Heat in Summer League 2024, as well as the G League, but watching him get limited garbage time opportunities for Miami this past year, as well as watching him in Summer League this year 2025, I just wasn't that impressed. I mean, his raw numbers are in Summer League this past year. In the 5 games in Vegas, he averaged 12 points, shooting 50% from the field and 26% from 3. I just got to be honest, I was disappointed. Like, Keshad dominated the G League. He was able to get some minutes in the NBA. When I see these guys go to the Summer League, I expect them to dominate. And a player that should warrant rotational minutes for Miami this year, I would expect them to dominate. Larson struggled with his efficiency, but there is no debate that when Larson was playing for the Heat Summer League team, he was arguably the best player. Either him or Ware, and I got to be honest, I'd give it to Larson because of his consistent aggressiveness and ability to defend and his effort level. Larson showed me in Summer League, yeah, that is an NBA rotational guy. When I was watching Keshad Johnson in that Heat Summer League team, there were too many games and too many situations to where I didn't even know if Keshad Johnson was playing. And that, to me, is why I don't know if I feel that strongly about him potentially being a rotational guy for Miami this year. I feel like he's going to be at the end of the bench most of the season behind a Hawkes, behind Jovic, behind Larson. So it's like, where is his playing time going to come from? And if I'll be honest, if I had to choose between Johnson and Kolek in terms of who to have in my system and organization as a developmental piece, I'm going to choose Tyler Kolek 10 out of 10 times. Wrapping up the video here in a second, but grab your Heat hoodies today. We're almost a month away from the regular season beginning. We're 3 weeks away from the preseason. Go to chadsports.com/Heat sale. This Heat hoodie is 56% off. Still available for $53. Go grab yours now. I'm not going to sink draft capital into Tyler Kolek and trade for him because that's not a position of need for Miami. But if you could convince the New York Knicks to do a one-for-one swap of Keshad Johnson for Kolek, yeah, I'd be in. I think that is something that Miami should be interested in. Will they? Probably not. And I doubt it happens because the Heat like Keshad Johnson a lot. They view him as a player that could really find a role on this Heat roster. It's why they gave him a fully guaranteed contract for this season. Remember, he was on a 2-way deal last year. I think you could have kept Keshad on a 2-way deal this season, but they gave him a guaranteed 1-year deal, and he's on the roster. I bet the Heat wish they didn't do that because they probably would have been able to keep him on a two-way, where the Heat still have an open slot, by the way, and then they could have signed a guy like Precious Achiuwa right now and had him be their third big, which is a need for this roster. Another move by Pat Riley that did not make a lot of sense at the time and still doesn't make a lot of sense. That'll do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody for hanging out with us here on this edition of the Heat Report. If you're still watching and not subscribed, what are you waiting for? You clearly like what we're bringing to the table, and the season's almost here, so subscribe for daily content.